Tonight, after sale, Australia's funniest home videos, then Drew Carey. 8:30, a premiere Anzac Day special when we revisit the French village of Pozières. This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
By dawn's early light, a record crowd honours the heroes of war. Veterans cheered by youngsters as the Anzac tradition lives on, and Prime Minister Howard leads the Australian pilgrimage to Gallipoli. Good evening. Also tonight, Essendon kicks away from Collingwood after a tight struggle at a packed MCG. Welcome to our special Anzac Day edition of National 9 News. This is the day we remember with pride the sacrifices made by so many Australian men and women during wartime. And we start our coverage with Melbourne's dawn service, where 12,000 people gathered at the Shrine of Remembrance. The reporter is Allan Raskall.
The eternal flame burning as a lasting memory of the Anzac legend. Thousands gathered at the Shrine of Remembrance to honour those who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country.
They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow.
The young joined with the old to pay homage, 85 years since our troops landed at Gallipoli.
They were staunch to the end, against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe.
After an emotional rendition of God Save the Queen, our national anthem echoed through the silence.
Not once did the troops display the least sign of hesitation in performing what they believed to be their duty.
It was then time for private reflection inside the shrine. The number of diggers may have thinned over the years, but the Anzac spirit survives, kept alive in the hearts and the minds of the thousands who pay tribute.
It's an extreme sacrifice that these young fellows made.
We owe them such a debt. We if they hadn't done what they did, we probably wouldn't be here today.
Thank you very much indeed for what you did for all Australians and for the future of Australia.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Allan Raskall, National 9 News.
The resurgence of interest in Anzac Day also drew huge crowds to the annual parade from the city to the Shrine of Remembrance. In the best weather for years, the mood among both marchers and spectators was noticeably upbeat. Charles Slade joined them.
A decade ago, there was a growing concern the Anzac Day parade had lost its relevance to modern generations, that it was an anachronism reviving memories of events best forgotten. But in the past few years, as the ranks of the diggers have inevitably aged and thinned, the crowds have grown younger and larger, driven by a renewed need to respect the sacrifices that were made and the losses suffered by older generations of Australians.
Give honour to people that gave us a free country.
These guys went out there and did it for us, and my children live in a country of freedom because of it.
Among the tens of thousands of supporters lining the march from Flinders Street Station to the Shrine, each year there are more children.
Good day to worship the people that died in the war.
Because they saved our country.
The resurgent interest has also swelled the ranks of the marchers, and even though today's parade took almost 4 hours to complete, the veterans were happy to oblige.
The kids are learning more about it now, and it's great for Melbourne, great for Australia too.
Normally there's not this crowd down here. It's marvellous, really good.
Only a few years ago, the public's interest in Anzac Day seemed to be diminishing. But now that the number of original Anzacs is dwindling, there's a growing determination that they won't be forgotten.
To see more people here than last year really says that this is a symbolic day of our nationhood and our spirit of Australia.
But amid the joy of a tradition reborn, there are still the painful memories.
Remember our menfolk, and they didn't come home and have died since.
This is very emotional. Really? We're down to about 9 today. We usually have 18 to 20, so we're fading fast. So it stirs you right up.
With a record crowd also staying for the Anzac Day commemoration service, the man who's done more than any other to nurture the occasion says the reason is simple.
A country without a heritage is a country without a soul, and I think they're waking up.
Charles Slade, National 9 News.
At Gallipoli, where the Anzac legend was born, more than 10,000 joined Prime Minister John Howard in remembering those who risked or sacrificed their lives to write one of the most important chapters of our history. Fleur Betcon was there.
Far from home, they came at dawn to pray and to remember. More than 10,000 Australians and New Zealanders flocked to Gallipoli's shores and to the ridges where the Anzacs fought an heroic battle against all odds. The service a time for silent reflection.
At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Prime Minister Howard laid a wreath at the new memorial for those who died.
For those young Australians, as wild and free as the land they loved, left us a creed to which we can all aspire.
8,700 Australian soldiers lost their lives here. Most of them are buried at this sacred site where the Anzac legend was born.
Soon its record, once written on pages wet with tears, will be ours alone to guard, ours to cherish.
For the young and old here today, the Gallipoli story holds a very special place in their hearts.
I don't think anything typifies being an Australian more than this moment today.
Just the thinking about what the men did here, it was very moving, very sad.
And in this new century, the crowds here were larger than ever, proof that the annual reminder of the wounds of conflict is something Australians will never forget.
So much tragedy. And what is war about? War is really futile.
On the Gallipoli Peninsula, Fleur Betcon, National 9 News.
And while a new generation is commemorating Anzac Day, the ranks of the veterans are thinning. A sad absentee from today's march, Melbourne's oldest digger, Roy Longmore, one of the last two surviving Gallipoli Anzacs. David Broadbent with this report.
An especially poignant note in Hobart this morning, where the Anzac March was led by 101-year-old Alec Campbell, the only Gallipoli survivor taking part in today's ceremonies. While fellow marchers could only marvel at his fighting spirit, Mr Campbell laughed at the idea that he could be the centre of attention.
No, I don't think that's good. I don't think many people come to see me.
Sadly, the only other Gallipoli survivor, 106-year-old Roy Longmore, couldn't make the parade, watching instead from his Melbourne nursing home. In Sydney, where tens of thousands ignored the rain to pay their respect, Major General Peter Cosgrove led the parade to the cenotaph. The former commander of Australia's peacekeeping force in Timor was awarded the RSL's Anzac Peace Prize. And hundreds of Timorese joined some of the 2,000 Australians still serving in the peacekeeping force at a dawn service in Dili. And as troops and civilians celebrated the Anzac sacrifices, all were acutely aware that some of their comrades were still patrolling areas where World War II diggers had fought the Japanese with the valiant assistance of the local people.
And here are we, some 60 years later, on the same soil, commemorating Anzac Day.
David Broadbent, National 9 News.
Rural communities across the nation have also paid their respects to those who left to fight for their country. Wayne Dyer travelled to the small Wimmera town of Minyip, where only a handful of returned diggers remain.
Minyip doesn't have a cenotaph. Instead, people gather at the gates of the football oval to honour those who are literally pillars of the community. Each year, the townsfolk march to Minyip's Memorial Hall, a journey travelled today by just a dozen war veterans. They'd lost 3 of their comrades in the past year. The SES and the Fire Brigade proudly swell the ranks of the few heroes left.
They have the march in town, but you don't get the community behind you in the hall like we did this morning.
Inside the hall, a hometown hero from a later time thinks back to those gates.
All those names are still synonymous
with this district, with this township. And it is, I think, worthy that we come together as a group of people to reflect and remember.
The weary remnant, best qualified to do both, add their words of hope.
Perhaps the sons of a lot of the older diggers, yes, I think they'll help carry it on.
Mercifully, the only battleground trodden by Minyip's youth now is a field of play. But as they pass through these gates, there's a constant reminder of their forebears who paid the high price for entry to the peace and freedom they now enjoy.
From time to time, they do stop and read the names, and I suppose they look up and say, oh, well, there's Dad's name.
Wayne Dyer, National 9 News.
I'll be back with the rest of the day's news after the break. Police will recommend bravery awards for 4 people who risked their lives to tackle an armed bandit at Noble Park this morning. They included a 76-year-old man who was stabbed while wrestling the attacker. Sally Pickering with the story.
Still too frightened to show her face, Tuan Vuong and 9-year-old Susan were robbed by a man armed with a knife as they pulled up at a Noble Park supermarket.
A terrifying experience. It was. I never expected it happened to me.
The bandit ran off as Mrs. Vuong screamed for help, her cries attracting 2 passers-by. One of them, 76-year-old Satba Hassan Kohli, was stabbed in the wrist as he grabbed the attacker.
Because I hate these people doing this thing, no?
The desperate struggle drew the attention of Peter Rokar and Vince Catalano, who wrestled the man to the ground, holding him until police arrived.
If someone attacks an old person in that way with a knife, it's not nice, and, you know, no one deserves that. And we thought just that was the right thing to do.
Police have commended the courage of all those who played a part in subduing the offender.
So many people have been so concerned that they've actually risked their own safety to look after someone else in the area.
Money is not the important thing, but from their heart and their help, that is the most important thing, and I never forget.
A 26-year-old Endeavour Hills man is being questioned over the robbery. Sally Pickering, National 9 News.
A Carrum Downs family has lost everything in a fire which destroyed their home this morning. Neighbours jumped fences to extinguish the flames and rescue family members who were still inside when the blaze broke out. Stefan Kotora, his wife, mother-in-law and 2 children have been left without furniture, clothes and much-needed asthma medication after cancelling their insurance because they couldn't afford it.
We lost everything. It's probably a couple of things left, and that's all.
Police have issued an urgent plea for holiday motorists to take care when returning home tonight in heavy traffic. 4 Victorians have died on the roads during an Easter break in which hundreds of drivers were caught speeding. Susie Calder reports.
It was a heavily congested Calder highway near Kyneton, slowing holiday traffic to a crawl late this afternoon. Along this stretch of road, in just 3 hours on Good Friday, 500 motorists were detected speeding. Yesterday, another 300 were caught by the same camera.
I just think that some people need to stop and think and just realise that the message applies to them. It's simply not to the next person.
So far this Easter, 4 Victorians have been killed in road accidents, taking the state's toll to 138, 16 more than this time last year.
And it's disappointing for the fact that when you look at the crashes, they've involved speed, fatigue, alcohol.
Also frustrating police this Easter, the number of drinkers still taking to the roads. In 5 days, 21,000 motorists were breathalyzed, 82 were over 0.05.
We'd asked the motorists that were travelling back to the city tonight to be extra careful. There's going to be an extraordinary amount of traffic on the roads, and to take that little bit of extra time.
Susie Calder, National 9 News.
Muslim gunmen have kidnapped 21 people, including 10 foreign tourists, from a tropical island resort in eastern Malaysia. The group, abducted from a popular diving destination on Sipadan Island, is now being held hostage. Authorities say no Australians have been involved, while 2 Americans who escaped the abductors are helping police. A Philippine Islamic separatist group has claimed responsibility for the incident, but has yet to make any ransom demands. In the United States, a feud between gangs of youths at the National Zoo in Washington has ended in a hail of gunfire, killing a 12-year-old boy and wounding 5 other children. The victims, between 11 and 16, were attending an Easter gathering celebrating African-American families. and high winds have delayed the space launch of the 2000 Olympic torch. The boomerang-shaped torch, together with a Sydney Games flag, was on board the Space Shuttle Atlantis, which was scheduled to take off from Florida today. NASA says it may make a second attempt tomorrow. But closer to home, nothing could stop a World War II veteran from taking to the air in a machine equipped with far less than today's planes. As part of Anzac Day celebrations at the Point Cook RAAF base, Bill Waterton gave a small but dedicated group of onlookers a rare flying display in a 1953 Harvard. Now 76, Mr Waterton was just 17 when he joined the Australian Air Force in wartime. Today's performance enough to prove to himself he's still got what it takes. Tony Jones is next with sport, including the blockbuster at the MCG.
Good evening. In front of 88,000 fans at the MCG, Essendon has continued its unbeaten run for the season, this time at the expense of Collingwood. Although the Magpies led by 2 goals at half-time, the Bombers came out fighting after the break to score a 40-point win. Lucas kicked 6 goals, Lloyd contributed 5. Here's Anthony Mithen.
With the morning ceremonies over, a march of a different sort led to a new tradition, Collingwood and Essendon making Anzac Day their own battle. A battle they're prepared to play in true Anzac spirit, sharing a banner before lining up for the bugle, a moment enjoyed by all.
Lest we forget.
And it was only the brave in for the ball early, Lucas's courage eventually resulting in a major score. He doubled up minutes later.
Lucas again for another one!
But it was goal for goal from there in the first half. The Theris up and running, Buckley and Williams combining after quiet starts for a long goal. Moorcroft flew like a bomber of old, while at the other end Buckley was supreme. 3 second-quarter goals, all of them booming and decisive. The Pies by 2 goals at half-time.
Sensational! Nathan Buckley!
The Bombers needed a star, and while Lloyd and Lucas kept the scoreboard ticking over, levelling up to the Pies again, it was Caracella who provided the magic.
That is brilliant.
Not once but twice. The Bombers skipping clear before a couple of goals to Chris Tarrant kept the Pies just in touch. Essendon by 16 points at the last change. But Hurd picked up where Buckley left off. Happy to be on the end of the hard work. Buckley's day going from bad to worse, giving Lloyd the football on a platter and a moment to remember on this Anzac Day.
He makes no mistake.
And joining me now is Anzac Spirit medalist James Hurd. Congratulations, James. What a win.
Yeah, it was great. Look, Collingwood played very well and they're a very good side, but to get away with the win was fantastic.
And you must be pleased with your own form.
Oh, yeah, look, it was good to win the medal and be part of a winning side.
The juggernaut continues, Tony. Back to you.
Good on you, Anthony. James, thanks for that. Well, in the late match at Subiaco, Fremantle and Brisbane are staging a pretty entertaining battle. At three-quarter time, it's the Dockers leading the way, 11-8-74 to the Lions 9-9-63. That's an 11-point advantage to the home side. Jamie Aldridge reports.
Although not favoured to beat Brisbane, Fremantle at home can sometimes be a difficult proposition.
And gets the first one of the game.
The Dockers ran into some trouble of their own making, but when they managed to get their heads together, they opened up a 22-point lead. Sean Hart, however, helped reduce that.
Tugs it around. What a magnificent goal.
What the Lions lacked in method, they made up for on the scoreboard. When Jared Malloy had his second in similar style, Brisbane took the lead. The Dockers, though, grabbed the ascendancy heading into the final change.
Fairy tale ending to that saga. He's kicked the goal.
Carlton, meanwhile, has set itself up for a fruitful 3 weeks after yesterday's thrashing of Richmond. The Blues take on Sydney, Fremantle and St Kilda, with the players primed following back-to-back wins. Particularly potent, Anthony Koutafidis. With 31 touches against the Tigers, he's in ominous form.
When the ball falls your way, you can have one of those lucky days, but yesterday was a pretty good day for all of us, team included, and to be 4-3 now is what we wanted.
Jamie Aldridge, National 9 News.
Well, here's how the ladder looks. Now, this is before the Brisbane-Fremantle result, and it's a case of as-is for the top 8. The unbeaten Bombers leading the way from Geelong, Collingwood and the Kangaroos. To rugby league now, and Melbourne Storm's mid-season revival continues, downing the Bulldogs in Sydney today. The Storm posted a 44-22 point win, reaffirming their return to form. Not quite an MCG Anzac Day crowd at Stadium Australia, but the intensity was still there. Canterbury was the first to put a score on the board, but then Melbourne moved into attack with immediate results.
Picked it up, got there and has replied.
Storm ran in another 3 tries before half-time, grabbing a 26 lead. But the Bulldogs bid back to trail by just 4 at the break.
Oh, what a try to the Bulldogs!
The second half was Melbourne at its destructive best. This Matt Geyer intercept all but sealing the win.
Matt Geyer will streak away and ensure that the Melbourne Storm pick up their first victory on the road.
And as if to drive home the point, the Storm notched up another. The reigning premiers consolidating their place in the 8 with a 22-point win.
And that's sport, Pete. Thanks, Tony. Still to come, Rob Gell with the weather.
Good evening. A cold start as expected for the dawn service, but also as expected we've had beautiful weather for Anzac Day. On the satellite photograph sequence, clear skies right across our state today. Storms up in Darwin and clouds streaming through Queensland producing rain and a bit of shower activity down in Perth as well. We're still dominated by this big high. It's big one and very slow moving. Very light winds over us today. A couple of sea breezes in fact developing across the coast with the sunny skies, and it's going to stay fine until Saturday. Rainfall to 9 o'clock this morning, restricted to the northern part of the continent, pretty heavy around Cairns again. Temperatures across our state still one or two less than average, and only in the teens in the south, cooler across the highlands and out here around the Grampians, into the low 20s across the northern border, with a 22 at Yarrawonga the best today. For the metropolitan area, down to -1 at Coldstream overnight, and quite a few places in the northeast and the Wimmera down to 0. Not as cold near the coast. Frankston had a low of 9 and Geelong 10. Suburban temperatures mid to high teens. Melbourne 7.8 at 5 past 7 to 18.5 at 10 past 1 at a light sea breeze this afternoon. Currently 16. Forecast chart now, the high really doesn't go too far tomorrow, although we do go into milder northerlies on the western flank of it. That northerly will continue into Thursday, freshening up on Friday. This change will come through on Saturday, but won't really produce too much in the way of rainfall. Rain still focused on the North Queensland coast tomorrow. 1 or 2 showers also out here in Perth, generally fine through the southeast. Morning showers in Sydney should clear. There'll be showers or rain from Brisbane right through to Darwin. We have a severe frost warning tonight for all northern, north central and northeastern districts. It'll be a cold night, particularly inland, with that frost about, some fog patches developing in the morning as well, but they'll clear away to another fine, mild, mostly sunny April day, light northeast to northerly winds. Let's look at the conditions for the metropolitan area. 22 for Geelong, 21 for Frankston, and the city down to 8, and a top of 22 tomorrow with that wind just a light northerly right through. Here's the 7 days, still continuing fine and quite mild. 24s for Thursday and Friday, fine through until Saturday. We'll see a change then round to westerlies and a couple of showers. They'll clear up pretty quickly now though on Sunday. They won't last too long at all, although temperatures back to around 19 or 20 with a westerly. It should be fine through Monday and Tuesday. So we're starting to look for some more rain, Pete, but certainly some lovely autumn weather still to come.
Good, thanks, Rob. That's the news this Anzac Day, which showed beyond doubt that the heartfelt emotion and pride on our National Day of Remembrance continues to grow in strength. Good night.